Hey everyone, welcome back to PODTC. This is episode 6. Today I am joined by one of our award winners from this year's conference. He's being a little shy about it, but we know that he did really great work to receive that award, and we'll get into a little bit of that later. But today I'm joined by Binh Huynh. He is the Assistant Director of Transfer and Military Recruitment at The Ohio State University. I said it correctly. And I'm thrilled that he's here to talk to me today. So how's it going, Ben?
It's going well, Jonathan. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I think, the shy piece is accurate for the transfer world. I feel like everyone that works in transfer, we are humble. We are salt of the earth kind of people. So
I agree with you. Some of the most intelligent people I've ever met work in transfer. So I am being a bit, about that, but I really appreciate that you're here today. More than excited for our conversation today. I know that we alluded to the fact that you're one of our award winners this year, but most people who are at the conference may not know you, or some know you and not everyone. So we kind of got into your name and in the title, but can you tell me a little bit more about yourself? Obviously, like, you work at the Ohio State University, but like maybe where you went to school or anything else that you'd like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, everyone. So as Jonathan mentioned, my name's Ben. I work at the Ohio State University. I'm relatively new to the transfer world. I've been working in this area and space for just under 2 years now. My background is in education. So I went to Syracuse University in Central New York for my undergraduate work, and then fell in love with admissions, starting as a campus tour guide, and then hopped right into enrollment management work right after graduating. So I spent about 11 years working at Syracuse in different capacities of enrollment management, working on the admissions side, working for one of the colleges and academic units, doing pre-college. And then after my time there, I decided I wanted to go to the other side of the desk. So I moved to Columbus, Ohio to work at Cristo Rey Columbus High School as their college counselor, and spent 4 years there on the college counseling side, working with students and their families, helping them create college lists, craft essays. And the Cristo Rey model I loved because it is a model where it's not just about getting the student into college, it's just getting them through college. So even though a student may not be physically in our building and they're, at Kent State, or they're at Toledo, or they're, at a school in California, they would still be connected with me and my team if they decided they wanted to transfer. So I was able to spend some time sort of learning more about transfer through that role. And after 4 years there, I decided it was time to head back into higher ed, and the opportunity to work in the transfer world at Ohio State came up, and it was a perfect amalgamation of my previous experiences because I hadn't formally worked with transfer students. It was a space that I was sort of familiar with tangentially and had interfaced with through my time as working with first-year students and high school students. But it was a space I knew I wanted to learn more about and challenge myself, and I'm just so glad I made that move. So been in the role for about 2 years and could not be happier.
Yeah. Well, that's a cool. A lot of people in transfer recruitment or transfer admissions, however the institution names it, kind of starts on the freshman side. That's just kind of a natural progression. Sometimes they have some advising experience to move over, but not many times do you hear about someone going and being the college counselor in a high school and kind of getting the beginnings of transfer knowledge at the high school level. A lot of times when I talk to a high school counselor, kind of when the student graduates, they have moved on, and hopefully you set them up for success. And a lot of times they do, but that is a really interesting model that you guys had set up there. So that's cool. So
Absolutely.
when you were in that position, obviously Columbus, Ohio, you're close to the Ohio State University. Were you familiar with people on staff kind of before you applied, or was this kind of just a leap of faith kind of moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So through my time at Cristo Rey, I was able to engage and interact a lot with the folks that were responsible for Cristo Rey Columbus, whether it be because of our large underrepresented population that we had within our student body, or that it was a part of the Columbus Diocese. So it was a parochial school. So different undergraduate recruiters in the undergraduate admissions office at Ohio State were responsible for Cristo Rey recruitment. And so I was able to connect with them and provide feedback and sort of learn more. And so I was able to, have Thomas Giles as a colleague, Austin Martin, who works here in the office currently as well. I was able to interact with and learn more, and then also connect with Stephanie Negron, who's at the Newark campus for Ohio State. So it was great to kind of learn a little bit more about the Ohio State admission structure. But one of the things that you mentioned earlier, which I, also felt like was really important in my role as the college counselor, was, setting our students up in terms of their academic success, but also financial success. So making sure they're making good financial decisions. And within that role, and with the strength of Columbus State and a lot of the two-year schools that we have here in Ohio, it just made sense for me to kind of say, like, listen, if your ultimate goal is to get your bachelor's degree and go to work and be able to have a steady income so that you can provide for your, family and loved ones, this is a pathway that makes complete sense. And so we did a lot of education regarding 2-year to 4-year transition, which I don't think is very common in a lot of schools here in Ohio. And so I was, very grateful for that experience, because I think it really did set me up well for my work here at Ohio State.
That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, I learn a lot about people through these podcasts and just interviewing them for stuff, but I will say I haven't heard of that path yet. So
yeah,
very, very interesting, makes perfect sense, obviously, and sticking in Columbus and such, the progression geographically makes sense as well. So that's really cool. I'm going to pick on you for a moment because you were late to the OTC conference this year. I know you were busy, you were working, but it was a little bit of a close call. We knew that we were about to award you with something, and it was during lunch, and we had to ask your buddy Christian about, is he going to make it in time? And you got there with a few moments to spare, and we were okay with it. But other than the slight heart attack that you gave us, how did you enjoy the conference this year?
Oh, well, my apologies to you and the committee for my tardiness. And that is the one thing I usually pride myself on, is that I am always prompt, on time. I am still, and I think this is just ingrained in me from my parents, where I will show up to the airport not 1 hour in advance, not 2 hours in advance, but usually 3 hours in advance, just sitting at the gate, getting through security, just wanting to make sure. So I'm usually very paranoid about that stuff, but there were things happening on campus that I needed to take care of. But I'm so glad I was able to make it beyond just sort of the award, but just to be able to connect with colleagues and attend some of the afternoon sessions. And I love the OTC Annual Conference. I think having the opportunity to really put a spotlight on transfer, the work that's happening there, to be able to connect these different units that are working concurrently across the state of Ohio, and also in some ways across the country, to be able to talk about best practices and sort of share ideas is fantastic. And it is, I know Mary Witt will talk about how cost effective it is and all that, but it truly, in terms of bang for your buck, it's by far and away the best thing going on in Ohio, because there were ideas there, just even casual conversation with people throughout the afternoon that just really sparked something that I knew I would be able to put into action, whether it be for the summer or the fall, or and be able to add it to our strategic plan.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you learned, while you were there. And of course, the bang for your buck model. I mean, post-COVID, especially with institutions who are tight on budgets and travel restrictions and stuff like that, we felt it was important to try to keep it at a similar price point to what it's been, even years in the past, even though everything got more expensive. So thank you for saying that. It's a lot of work, and Amanda did a lot of work getting that together for us. And I had a good time as well. So, but I say that all the time. I'm glad to hear it from someone else.
Yeah.
So let's get into what you do a little bit. How about that?
I would love that.
So I know transfer recruiting can mean many different things, but essentially, we know what transfer recruiting is. Your position, though, also you assist military students coming in, I assume just with the application and their credits and stuff coming through. And that's just kind of lumped into the same team. Your whole team is the transfer and military recruitment team. It's not just you, but it is lumped in with transfer. How big of a chunk of your position does the military aspect take up out of your time?
Yeah, it's not a significant portion, but I also would follow up by saying I wish it were more. It's something that we are looking at and have been looking at for a few years now in terms of growing our veteran population here on campus, or military connected population here on campus. There are a lot of great institutions across the state of Ohio that do a fantastic job with providing support services and resources for our veterans. And Ohio State University is one of them, but one of the things that I think we could be doing a much better job at is promoting that, and then also creating a space of I don't want to use the word separation, but recognizing that, just as it is with transfer, everything is so nuanced, when it comes to military and veteran recruitment, it's also very nuanced. And so figuring out a way to kind of create a separate pathway there that runs concurrently with transfer, but also acknowledging that there are these other experiences and these other things that these students are going through or have done, so that way we can acknowledge that and be able to incorporate that into the admissions review process to help them come to Ohio State. So it is an area that we'd love to see grow, and one that I hope that we're able to do over the next few years.
That's awesome. I mean, the way that you put it, obviously military students do have different needs than there are other. They run closely sometimes with transfer students just because a lot of times they are coming in with transfer credit. So the marrying of the two kind of systematically does kind of make sense in a more general sense. But obviously, you talk to someone who's a veteran who's 22 plus, they're a little bit different than a 19-year-old transfer student or a 40-year-old. It's just very specific needs. So you're right.
Yeah.
And it's not a detriment that those two things may be split someday. So I don't think that's a bad thing to say whatsoever. Speaking of your role as well, I am originally from the Columbus area. Ohio State is very ingrained in my extended family. It's a big university, right? Was once the largest or most enrolled institution, I should say, but now you guys are pretty close to the top. And that I'm sure comes with benefits and challenges, but how do you feel about that aspect of working there?
Yeah, so I think just recently, I would say probably in the past year or so, starting to feel like an Ohioan. And what I mean by that is where I can sort of start talking about all Ohio activities as within the collective we. So I'll start saying we really should have beat Georgia, or we really should be considered a better place to visit than Pennsylvania, or like things like that. So that's, I think, it's taken some time, especially with me not having been born and raised in Ohio and having gone to school in New York. And, for a little while, I felt like the new guy here, but now I am the Ohio roots are starting to take place. And, to your question about what being the largest nationally, I think coming to campus, I did initially feel, I think like a lot of first year students and transfer students that come here, like, oh my gosh, it's like going to feel like this is a part of a giant complex, this industrial complex. But I am astounded on a truly daily basis on how the university and the different units work to really make this place feel small and have a variety of communities that you're able to sort of access with ease. And so, and then I think we see that with the students on a day-to-day basis as well, which is, I think, why we're able to enroll a good number of students and also retain a large number of students, year in and year out. But I am starting to get used to saying IO whenever someone's yelling OH. That's something that took, they said, a long time to kind of figure out, but I'm getting there.
It does catch other people, or I shouldn't say other people from other states off guard, because it doesn't matter where you are, at least in the United States. If you're in a restaurant or something, you yell OH. If you're down in Florida, there's quite a few people that'll yell it back at you.
Mm-hmm.
It's hilarious. So
yeah.
I'm glad to know the Ohio roots are coming for you. They come for everyone the longer you're here. So, I mean, it was only a matter of time.
Yeah, I like to joke, especially in my information sessions, that the people of Ohio love letting you know that they can spell Ohio.
It's really tough. Okay, like it takes a lot to. It's a 4-letter state.
Yeah.
2 of the letters are the exact same. One of them, so, they're on.
Just got to say it enough so that you can remember it. That's all.
Yeah. So kind of along that same line, OSU enrolls a ton of students every single year. A ton of students already go there. There's graduate students everywhere. I'm sure, you'll even have high school students on campus everywhere. So there's just a lot of people everywhere. However, you seem to work on a very small transfer team. So including your supervisor, who is also over some other units as well, or helps with, there's 3 of you. And that seems like a monumental task for 3 people with transfer students and military connected students. So what do you think the rationale for that is?
Yeah, and I think it is looking at the entire transfer process from prospective student to fully enrolled at Ohio State and in the classroom, and then looking at that entire process and dividing it up. So it is truly a division of labor, right? So there is that portion of where Marco, my supervisor, oversees transfer, military, international. So I'll report to him, and then my colleague Christian, who focuses on transfer as a counselor. And then we also do have a student worker as well that's here with us during the academic year that we hire as a new student worker every year. But you're right, it is a very small and nimble team, which is not unusual for, unfortunately, and I say that like across the transfer admission space, where the transfer teams tend to be on the smaller side, especially in comparison to the first year teams. But
they sure
for us, we're able to sort of do the work that we're able to do because we sort of look at it as a full spectrum. And we'll handle the prospect side, the inquiry side, obviously the admissions piece and getting students applied and enrolled, but we don't really touch on transfer credit. We really don't touch anything with orientation. We really don't touch anything as it relates to residency, and financial aid. And so all of those things are separated out, and we've got great colleagues across campus that are able to sort of navigate and manage that. And so, I think that also ties into what we were talking about just a few seconds ago, where how we're able to make Ohio State feel small is that when we talk about a transfer student coming in, there truly are anywhere between 8 to 12 people that will get connected with each student over the course of their journey from, an inquiry to enrollee at Ohio State, because of all the different ways that we break it out. And so I think that allows us to be able to bring in a nice, robust class every year that's, talented and capable and able to do the work that we expect of them. But it certainly is not easy, that's for sure. And as you can sort of attest, and anyone listening can attest, transfer, it's not like there aren't a lot of canned responses that you can send via email. Everything is so nuanced with each, transfer inquiry. So it does take a little bit of time, but, that's what makes it fun.
I agree. They're each little puzzles, and puzzles take time to complete, and it's not just the same conversation over and over. So you're right, it is very time consuming, and you're also right, we are usually small teams. We're a similar size here at Kent State, and we're not quite the size of OSU. We're still a fairly large institution, and yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work all the time, and it's glad to know that that's the thing. We all come together and we're like, does that happen to you too? Yeah, that does happen. Like, this happens to me. And you're like, oh yeah, that happened to me last week. And it's that's why I always like being involved with OTC and getting to know everyone around the state. So we've been happy to see you come around, and we're always happy to see new people come around as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned Marco, your supervisor. Marco is one of the people that nominated you for your award. We're always grateful for nominations from people. So plug for next year. If you know someone who you think is awesome, feel free to fill that out. But Marco specifically called you a great colleague who cares every day and shows that you care about you and your well-being. And he's happy to see others around the state that just know that you're an awesome dude. Why do you think he said that?
Well, I think the first thing is that I pay Marco weekly.
Yeah, it felt like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is, I know that might be, against HR policy, but I feel like, $10 a week goes a long way. And that's, that's what it gets me.
It's a pretty good deal, $10.
Yeah, I know. Hey, it's a lunch or maybe 2 lunches if you're fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
But he's super kind and very sweet, and has been a great mentor to me during my time here at Ohio State, and continues to be. I think one of the things that I learned very early in my professional career, and I was very fortunate, is that the community that I had in my very first office that I worked in as an admissions professional was truly a family. And we supported each other, and we obviously respected, our professional lives and personal lives, and sort of keeping those, keeping and maintaining that work-life balance. But I always knew I could count on everyone in that office for, anything that came up in my life. And I also saw like my peers that were in other offices, or other teams, and they didn't have that family experience. They felt isolated, or they felt like they were being taken advantage of, or that there's this like very artificial ladder that they had to crawl up, and that became more and more difficult because the people above them wanted to make it difficult. So knowing that and learning that, I knew early not to take, the workplace environment that you're in, that community that you're part of, for granted, and that I knew I wanted to find those places and continue to find those places as I move jobs. And so coming to Ohio State, where, as I mentioned, I had that initial fear of it being large, I was able to sort of see the community and the tight-knittedness of the undergraduate admissions office, and was immediately drawn to the camaraderie here. And so I knew, beyond just sort of the work that I'd be doing, that I would feel comfortable and be able to contribute to the community there.
That is the most humble response. You got your chance to brag a little bit about things, and you totally squashed it, man.
Again, that's why it's what we do in transfer. We operate with a sense of humility. I would say if we are just walking saints, that's what we are.
Yeah, very biblical. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Well, since you are going to be too humble, I mean, I see you out on the road. I know that Melissa, Mary, myself, Marco all nominated you for this award, and you impress Mary all the time. Melissa thinks that you're a great guy, and I hear this from other people around as well. So I thought it was a very well-deserving award for you. Where you have it in your office? Is that where you have it hung?
I do.
Okay.
I had it in my home for a few days, sort of like the Stanley Cup, where I wanted to make sure I could take it home, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then brought it back to the office just so then I could have it there and be able to look at it and feel grateful for, the opportunity to be a part of OTC and get connected with great colleagues like yourself, and just be motivated and feel impassioned about the work that we're doing on a daily basis, because it is important work. It's good work. And it's something that I'm just really excited to have been able to step into.
Yeah. The plaque is about the same size as the Stanley Cup trophy as well. So, I mean,
yeah, I tried to drink out of it, the plaque, and it did not work.
It's a little flat for that.
It was a little flat. And so just got, beer everywhere. I would not recommend drinking out of your plaque.
I'll keep that in mind, and
Yeah.
we'll tell that to the next round of people that we hand out
Yeah,
plaques.
absolutely.
Do not
Yeah.
run your water over this.
That is the one life advice that I'll like the professional tip that I'll provide ending this podcast. Don't drink out of your plaque.
I think it's sound advice. Obviously a bit off the rails a little bit, but we always close everything. Is there anything else that you would like to add or share with anyone about your role, OTC, or anything else that's going on in your life?
Yeah, gosh, I think I just recently came back from the Big Ten transfer conference. So
Yeah.
the Big Ten has the Academic Alliance, which is well documented and does a lot of great work because they sort of set the tone as far as athletic conferences and their members being able to sort of gather and focus on the academics and share best practices. And so there's a subset specifically for transfer as well, where all of my Big Ten transfer admissions counterparts, we gather once a year in Chicago, just to kind of talk about what's going on at our respective institutions, and again, also share best practices, share and celebrate each other for the victories, and then commiserate together for the losses. And it is a really great way to kind of stay connected with people across the country. And so what I would recommend is anybody that's listening, you're probably already doing this. I just encourage anybody that you're mentoring as well, but just to get involved and continue to engage in those types of networking opportunities like OTC, like that Big Ten transfer conference that I'm a part of. Like I think it was just having the opportunity to get connected with different people across the country that are doing similar work, or even across the state, or in Columbus being a larger city. You can look at it across the city where there are a number of higher ed institutions here that are involved in transfer. I think it's like so important, because this field, this the space that we operate in, it's a small world. People move from institution to institution, and so you never know what these relationships will bring.
Great. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Just like you.
Well, didn't expect that compliment here. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. Episode 6 PODTC. We've been doing this for half a year now. So I mean, that's a big milestone for me. I appreciate that you came here and shared that milestone with me. We'll keep them coming out monthly. Hopefully we can get some more award winners on here. You were my first, but we also, hand out a handful of awards every single year. So we'll get some more on. We'll start to cover some more topics and such, but thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye, everyone.